Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Digital Supply Chain Institute Insights in Action. As you know, we don't lack action and we don't lack great people to talk to, especially about the new ideas and new challenges and also solutions within supply chain. So today with me, I have Salah Nasri, the CEO of ISIG. Salah, welcome.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure.
So let's start the action immediately, and please help us a little bit and share with our audience how is ISIG leveraging the global network of semiconductor decision makers to ensure the success of its collaboration, so people can get a little bit more feel and taste about the organization.
Yeah, sure, Marco. I mean, look, the International Semiconductor Industry Group we're celebrating our 15th year anniversary this year. And we cover the whole ecosystem. So from the equipment, material manufacturer to the IDM, foundry, design house, all the way to the end user. So, when you look at semiconductor manufacturing, which pretty much powers everything that has electricity going through it, we are playing a very, very key role in terms of ensuring that collaboration is happening within this complex ecosystem. So when you look at it from the creation of the wafer that goes all the way to the chip, that then goes into the laptop that you use on a daily basis, your phone that you use on a daily basis, the car that you drive on a daily basis, the airplane that you get on as well. Everything is powered by semiconductor manufacturing. So our mission is basically liaising with the decision makers, with the executive management of these semiconductor players to share ideas and collaborate in a trusted network. That's our mission, and that's what we've been working on for the years today and the years to come as well, Marco. I hope I haven't missed out anything in specific
No,
from yours.
listen, you didn't, and the depth of the industry is definitely there. And I think from what you shared, we maybe we still operate as human beings without the semiconductor, but I don't know how long. I think that's the other question we need to wait and see. We know that there are so many as well tests and trials in that aspect, but let us shift gears and just make the connection between the supply chain. And can you share with us what makes the semiconductor supply chain this uniquely complex?
Well, I think what we have to take into consideration is that the semiconductor industry is facing, of course, compound pressure. And that is from global demand surges. We've experienced this heavily during the chip crisis that happened during the pandemic. And actually, Marco, not many people know, but one of the most famous chip crunch or chip supply chain problems that happened was it's one of my favorite stories to share is the Tamagotchi. So if you remember the Tamagotchi little thing that kids used to play with, I mean,
Yes.
I'm old. So we're old. Some people do recall it, but it was basically the generation after me. So they had this thing called the Tamagotchi, and the Tamagotchi was so in demand that was the first time that they had a chip problem. So the Tamagotchi, let's say in England, was maybe worth around £15. And when the chip crisis happened, people were selling these Tamagotchis at like £500 a pop.
Oh, wow.
So that is the impact of semiconductor manufacturing. So if we look at recent matters, for example, the chip problem also happened during the pandemic, and people couldn't buy a new car. So essentially what happened was that, second used cars, the price went absolutely bonkers. And then you've got the situation where, if you recall, during the pandemic, people couldn't watch their Netflix properly. It was kind of, it was pixelated. And because of the use that was taken by data servers. So, there's so many issues happening from the actual manufacturing process. But now we have a problem of geopolitical uncertainty, which is playing a massive role. Okay. The biggest headaches, of course, as of late, that every semiconductor executive is concerned about is the tariffs. One little piece of material, once it increases in price, will have a follow-on impact to the final product, right? And then, of course, you've got increasing ESG expectations, which is another headache that most people are dealing with in the semiconductor market. So supply chain resilience, of course, is no longer just a risk management strategy. It's now, of course, seen now as a core competitive advantage, Marko. So, you've got problems also with raw material constraints, which is exposing the fragility of semiconductor supply chains. So if we look at like the three current recent disruptions, tariffs, trade restrictions, and raw material constraints, this is the things that keep any semiconductor executive, no matter what region, no matter what department they're in, whether you're talking about procurement, technology, R&D, sales and marketing, every single area is being impacted. And us at the ISIG, I mean, we recognize that the traditional siloed approaches are no longer sufficient. And this is the message that we need to deliver across. And I think a more collaborative, a data-driven model is urgently needed. Hence why, of course, we are partnering with yourself at DSCI and your team. So that is pretty much let's say, an overview.
The overview, yeah, the pulse, the current pulse of the industry. And it's really a pleasure to have a conversation with you, because like the way of how you describe the challenges actually makes my life easier, in order to say that like, let's talk now about the potential solutions, and let's bring the conversation towards the partnership Digital Supply Chain Institute is doing with ISIG, in a sense of tackling the pressure of the supply chain side for semiconductor industry. Please, can you share with us what specific challenges this initiative we are creating together will actually tackle?
Yeah, I mean, very good question. I think when we look at these type of initiatives, we need to look at it from a different mindset, right? So we have to shift that mindset from a linear supply chain to interconnected ecosystems. And this is going to be done in a way whereby we will leverage our strong contacts that we have with our members and just get them in a room, find out a methodology that is going to be a win-win situation for all. And one thing that, of course, really is a unique method that is being used by DSCI is your Constellation of value model. And I see it from a perspective that this can truly help the semiconductor companies identify high leverage nodes, suppliers, logistics partners, data exchanges, and essentially what is the end result? That's the question that we need to ask at the end of the day. Why, or what is the purpose? And in semiconductor manufacturing, the winners, or the ones that are always leading the game, are the ones that know how to optimize for speed. They are very resilient, and of course know how to play the sustainability game. And I think using the methods that DSCI is enforcing, it's only going to introduce a customized playbook. So at the end of the day, from my perspective and from my awareness of the ecosystem, it's a theory game at the moment. And I think this, perspective of the constellation of value will be able to give each company actionable strategies tailored to their supply chain maturity and structure. And I think with the input from our members, the model can be, of course, grounded in real world use cases, not just, of course, generic supply chain theory. So I think this is what we're going to have to focus on, and focus on a more so a fostering ambience of cross-company visibility and something, of course, that is industry, something that where I've seen that the industry's rarely had and is always very cautious, and just creating a methodology behind it rather than just coming up with some sort of theory out there.
This is beautiful, Salah, and thank you very much for adding up the constellation of value as something DSCI has been working for last 2 years in a sense of creating really an ecosystem of value across the supply chain, which is horizontally connected rather than vertical, as you said. And I love the way of how you frame things in a sense of saying like, okay, you know, it's great to have a framework, it's great to have a way going forward, but we need to create the playbooks which will be applicable towards the specific needs of the organizations who are involved. And actually what we are planning together, this is a great segue, you know, we are planning together to organize a constellation of value working or industry group for semiconductors, and having that in mind and having in mind how practical ISIG and DSCI are. Can you please share with us what are your goals for the first 12 months and how you will measure success across participating companies? Because that's a big differentiator between those who just think and propose new models and those who really make things happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think one of the best analogies that one can think of is a sports game, right? Or a sports team, you know, whether if we pick out any sport like British football or basketball or whatnot, there needs to be a playbook in play. So I think what we need to kind of focus on is the first year, we need to build a execution playbook based on the constellation of value with inputs from all companies. And when I talk about all companies, I'm referring to the whole ecosystem, Mark. I'm not specifically picking one company that's a foundry that has a fab and that's it. I'm looking at the equipment players, the material manufacturers. Then we go to the integrated device manufacturers, the foundry players, the design houses, and even the end user, where, you know, Apple, Volkswagen, or any of these players that are using these chips in specific. And, you know, we can't also neglect the inventory management service suppliers. We can't neglect the logistics partners who are dealing with critical time shipping, which is a very important thing. So I think that's the priority number one. What I also think in terms of the second priority is we kind of need to launch at least 2 cross-company pilot projects that addresses pain points. And pain points in the semiconductor game, which is similar to other industries, is of course lead time volatility, ESG compliance, and of course data transparency. Right. And then, of course, we'll connect this with established KPIs tied to real outcomes. And I think that the ideal outcomes would be 1, reduction in supply disruption systems or time, improved time to response during disruptions, and decarbonization metrics. So all of these will play a key role. And of course, at the end of the day, as I mentioned previously, is that the success of this game isn't going to be measured by theoretical alignments. I think with the support with DSCI, our goal will be deploying tangible and scalable models. That is going to be the big win for the industry. And last but not least, I think you know, the working group whereby whoever out of our members decides to join will also serve as a peer-to-peer network. So we will have qualitative value, and that will end up with having trust, collaboration, and knowledge sharing, which is equally critical. And it is the DNA of our association, the International Semiconductor Industry Group. That is what's made us successful to date. And this very, very important methodology needs to be installed because nobody's doing it at the moment in our game.
There is definitely an exciting journey ahead of us, and Salah, you know, kudos to you and your team for taking a bold step forward towards tackling one of the greatest challenges at this stage. And of course, you know, we will be super happy to build the case studies together, through this. Now, I would like to ask you one thing is how will this initiative influence the future of ISIG programs or summits, and could we see a broader industry-wide frameworks emerge from this potentially?
Well, a great question again, Marko. I mean, look, at the end of the day, when you look at this from this perspective, semiconductors powers the world. It powers everything, right? You name the industry, semiconductors is involved, right? Any industry, give me any, medical, give me any industry, architecture, buildings, construction, you need semiconductors. So I think at the end of the day, what we will end up seeing, should this be a great success, people will then learn from us. We have a situation whereby in technology, people will always say, if there's a new industry that comes in, for example, photonics, or if we talk about quantum computing, they will all say to you, that community will say, we need to learn from the semiconductor industry because we're the oldest industry. And we are currently the most important industry, hence the why there's so many trade wars going on, and always electronics comes into play. So I think at the end of the day, that if we lead this well as an effective example, the methodology will then be easily referred to as a blueprint, and that gets copy pasted into different areas. So I think that is the thing is, but I think one of the key challenges that that is very obvious is that semiconductor manufacturing has always been kind of a secretive market, or a very secretive industry, because at the end of the day, it's technology driven. But where we have seen innovation accelerate is when it has not been secretive, and collaboration has been the key methodology. So when you look at any major player in semiconductor manufacturing, the common term that they're all using now is collaboration. I have a funny anecdote to actually share with you. Is actually, during the chip crisis, Marko, one very famous automotive company, which I will not name, was actually saying that they wanted chips at lower prices. Recently, a recent event of ours, the theme has changed, and now they're asking for collaboration now. So I think
everything is evolving, right?
Correct, exactly. Everything's evolving, and funny how the table turns very fast is another one. Yeah.
And that brings us, it's a perfect, let's say, sentence to try to wrap up our conversation. And with the blueprint in mind that can be taken forward and exercised, I would like to ask you for one sentence advice you would give to semiconductor companies not yet involved. What can they do now to prepare for the future disruption?
Better late than never. Join now. That's all I can say.
Wow, I love that. With better late than never. Let us wrap up these first conversations. I'm sure we'll do some more with more specific examples. Let me thank you and ISIG for the new partnership we are building together. We are excited about it. And thank you, Salah, for opening the semiconductors world to us. And we look forward to the next steps together.
Marvelous. Thank you, Marko. It's been a pleasure. Let's make it happen. And as you say, let's push forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being with us. This was another episode of Digital Supply Chain Institute Insights in Actions. Stay tuned for more.